guys, welcome to LM Teaches English. In this video, I'm going to talk you through a little bit, kind of a brief overview of Language Paper 1 AQA. And this is the first paper you'll sit for the language qualification of English. And for this paper, you don't actually need to have any prior knowledge of texts. You don't need to have revised any texts, okay? So anyone who struggles with memorising quotes from poems, things like that, you'll be pleased to hear there's none of that with the language paper. What you do need to know, and it does involve a little bit of memorising, maybe in practice we'll call it instead of memorising, makes it sound more useful, is you do need to know how to answer these questions here that I've written down for you, because there is something specific that the examiner is looking for in each question, which I'm going to go through with you today. So as you can see, I'm not using high technology here, I'm just using a pen and a notepad. So I also recommend that you make notes as you're watching this video. Things that I say that you think might be useful, just jot them down. You can pause the video, of course, it's slightly better than a lesson in a classroom, and for that reason I suppose you can actually pause me, rewind, and things like that. So let's just jump straight into it, because we've only got a few minutes to do this video. So question 1 is very simple. It's simply a question of finding evidence to back up something or other. So the question will say something like, look at lines 1 to 6 and write down the things that show how the van is described or the beach is described, something like that. And it just wants very basic things, 4 very basic things. My advice on this one, to not trip yourself up, because it's 4 marks, I know you could easily say it's not really that much, but you know, it could be the difference between a grade, so you want to get all the marks you can. Sorry, I was going to tell you the trick with this one. The trick with this one is to pay attention to the lines it's asking you to look at. So if it says lines 1 to 6 and you start writing things down from line 7, you just get 0 marks, okay? So make sure you pay attention to that. And the second thing is use a direct quote. Don't, you can use your own words, it's not going to mark you down, but I advise you to use direct quotes just because you're less likely to be wrong that way. Okay, so for question 2, I've just written here what they're asking you to do. So in question 2, they're asking you to focus on the language that the writer has used and the effects of that language, okay? And that sounds confusing, sounds sort of, I don't know, high level, but it doesn't have to be. It's 8 marks, so they're not asking for a huge long essay here. What they are asking for is for you to show them that you have made an inference about language. So I should have said at the beginning of this as well, you'll be given a fiction text to read, which means it'll be a kind of a short story or an extract from a novel, something like that. And chances are something will be being described in great detail. So in this question, they'll ask you again to focus on a certain section of the extract. You want to have read the whole thing though before this point, but you will only be asked to look at a certain extract, and it will say to you something like, how does the writer use language to describe or to show or to present something that's happening in there? And it'll be specific, like the character's feelings towards, I don't know, his girlfriend, something like that. And then all you have to do, language can be anything. It can be a word that you think sounds particularly nice. So I don't know, if the writer used the word spectacular to describe this person, you can pick up on that word and explore and unpick and zoom right in to detail why the writer has used that particular word, and then infer what it shows as well. What does it suggest about the language used, about how the person feels about the character or whatever it is, okay? And you can use 5-star paragraphs for language, but you must bear in mind that you're not asked to do any zooming out to historical context, because you're not expected to know the text at all. Instead, you should think if you'll zoom out as looking at the text as a whole, or looking at the point you're making as a whole, okay? For question 3, so language then, just to reiterate, you want to pick out a word or phrase and explore the effect. You will also need to make sure you're using terminology of some kind. So, by terminology, all I mean is saying, when you pick up on that word, so he said spectacular, I think, you would say the writer has used the adjective spectacular, and that's your tick for using terminology. If you can use a lot of terminology, you're going to get higher marks. If you can talk confidently about the effect of that word, so spectacular implies, or we associate the word spectacular with a show, with something that makes us excited. So the fact that the character is describing this person as spectacular implies there's a level of excitement in his relationship with her. Yeah, so that's you showing the effect of that word. The terminology is you saying what type of word it is. Equally, you could say the use of the rhetorical question, the use of the metaphor, the use of the simile. So it doesn't just have to be individual words. You could use a whole quote, a whole writing feature as well. And that's maybe nice to do a bit of variety for the examiner, to show that you have a wide range of skills. You're able to pick up on a wide range of things. For structure, then question 3, which is also worth 8 marks, you're going to be given a question that's going to say something like, maybe exactly, how has the writer used structure to interest the reader? So you know there that you've got to link your points back to the effect on the reader. It's really nice of them to give you that, that reminder. And actually in language, in paper 2, question 2, you can actually talk about the effect on the reader as well when you talk about effects, okay? So structure simply means how the text is laid out. So what's happening in the beginning, what's happening in the middle, and what happens in the end, okay? So the best thing for you to do in this question is say what's happening in the middle, so just state it. The beginning, sorry. So in the beginning of this extract, we are introduced to the character Bill, all right? Whatever. The writer has used has used a hook. Let's go with that one. So that's a structural feature, isn't it? A hook. The writer has used a hook in the form of a short sentence, or whatever it is, to draw the reader in and to pique our interest about who this character Bill is. We could be more specific then if we put a quote in. So maybe the quote says something like, Bill wore his cap backwards so that he could fit in with the other skater boys, okay? So then you've got words that you can, I'm literally making this up off the top of my head, by the way. Then you've got words that you can zoom in on, ideas that you can zoom in on, like the fact that he's wearing this cap backwards. And that's a hook for the reader as well. We're invested now with this character of Bill. We want to know why he feels like he needs to fit in, okay? So you need to talk about beginning, middle and end. You need to talk about structural features, and you can Google these and revise them as well. So that's your terminology. Your terminology in this one would be language features, okay? So you can again Google them, but think along the lines of shampoo, okay? And if you don't know what shampoo is, I will put that in the description box as well. It's just a good way of remembering all the techniques. So S is simile, for example. Beginning, middle and end, structural features, and then effect on the reader. Okay, so it's sort of like a 3-point paragraph. If you remember PEE paragraphs, if you ever taught those, it's a really good method to use for the structure question. Okay. And it's similar structure as well to the language question, because you want to try and make a range of points. You want to try and make 3 points about language, and you want to talk about beginning, middle and end, which is 3 points about the structure as well. Okay, moving on to question 4. Here you can actually use some of the points that you've made in questions 2 and 3, because this question gives you a statement, something along the lines of, a student after reading this text thought that Bill was a really sympathetic character and that people would really like him. Something like that. You'll be given a statement like that. And then it will say, how far do you agree with this statement? Okay? So you need to make sure you're answering that part of the question. So you need to respond to the statement first and foremost. So, my bullet points aren't aligned, that's ugly. Anyway, you need to respond to the statement. So I'm just going to put stars around that. Okay? So you need to say, I agree, I disagree, or if you're aiming for higher marks, you want to try and be more tentative. So you want to say things like, I partially agree, I partially disagree. It's always better to give, to be more tentative, to not go blazing in and, no, this is completely wrong. You want to be more balanced, okay? So I kind of agree, I kind of don't agree, I partially disagree. And then you would give evidence as to why you partially agree and not fully agree, or as to why you partially agree and not disagree, okay? And to do that, you just put a quote in, and then you explore that quote and how it links to the question, the statement that you're writing about. So make sure you show your opinion. When I say balanced, I don't mean show both sides of the argument, because you don't actually need to do that. You need to have an opinion. You need to show the examiner that you've engaged with the text, that you've read it, and you have an opinion on it. It's okay to say why you might think other people might think something, but it's really important to say, I think this, okay? Have an opinion, or I partially agree, or I think this, just to show that you have thought about it, in other words, okay? You'll need to use evidence, as you do in every single question ever in English. You'll always have to use a quote, so it goes without saying, but I'll put it on there anyway for you. And you'll need to use terminology again. Again, those are things that you need to use in every, every English, language, literature, whatever it is. You need to use evidence and terminology, okay? So you need to identify the word that you're looking at. Okay, what's really clever about this paper is the way that it's laid out. It allows you to learn about different angles of the extract that you've just read, the story, and then it asks you to describe an image, and it will provide you with an image. And normally, 9 times out of 10, that image relates somehow, or the question relates somehow to the extract you have just read. So if you're really engaging and you're paying attention, you'll realise those language techniques that you've been analysing and those structural features that you've been analysing, you can now include in your descriptive writing, okay? So you might have picked up on the fact that the writer has used lots of punctuation. Well, then why not use lots of punctuation in your writing as well? You might have picked up on the fact that the writer has used a nice metaphor. Well, why don't you use a nice metaphor in your writing as well? So it's set out in a way for you to kind of, it's almost like a lesson in a way, this paper. It's like it's teaching you a lesson, and then you can show what you have learned in question 5. So don't be afraid of copying some of the techniques that the writer has used in the extract. Don't copy sentences, obviously, or the exact plot, but like I said, if the writer has used a really nice simile, then that should jog your memory to remind you to include a really nice simile. I really like the idea of writing shampoo on your paper. So simile, I'm going to forget them now. Simile, hyperbole, alliteration, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, and oxymoron. And then every time you use one, tick it off, tick it more than once if you need to. And then you can come back and see, I haven't used a metaphor yet, let's use a metaphor. Similarly, if you do the same thing with punctuation and tick it off as you use it, then you're using a variety, and that's exactly what the examiner wants to see, is a variety, okay? Variety of language features, variety of punctuation, variety of paragraph and sentence lengths. Right, I'm coughing because I'm talking too much, so I'm going to wrap it up there. That is what you need to do for language paper 1. This is very much a whistle-stop tour, but it's a good recap or a good bit of revision. If you have any questions, just leave comments below and I will definitely get back to you, okay? Alright, so let's leave it there for now, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!